Joe's Diner was just like any other small restaurant you'd find in a busy downtown area. It wasn't fancy, but it had charm, warm lighting, red vinyl booths, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee that greeted every customer who walked through the door. The diner attracted all kinds of people. Construction workers grabbing a quick breakfast before heading to the site, office employees sneaking away for lunch, and even families looking for a cozy spot to share a meal. For years it had been a staple in the neighborhood, known for its friendly staff and hearty portions. On this particular morning, Sarah, one of the waitresses, arrived at work with her usual energy, or rather, lack thereof. She wasn't what you'd call a people person. While she was efficient at taking orders and delivering food, her sharp tongue often got her into trouble. Some customers appreciated her wit, while others found her attitude off-putting. But Sarah didn't care much about their opinions. To her, waiting tables was just a job, a means to pay the bills until something better came along. The morning rush was already underway when Sarah tied on her apron and joined the chaos. Plates clattered, steam rose from the kitchen, and the chatter of hungry patrons filled the air. As she weaved between tables, balancing trays loaded with pancakes and bacon, Sarah couldn't help but notice a new face sitting by the window. He was an older man, tall and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. His polished shoes gleamed under the diner's fluorescent lights, and his posture exuded confidence. There was something different about him, something that made him stand out from the usual crowd. Most customers came in jeans or sweatshirts, but this man looked like he belonged in a boardroom, not a greasy spoon diner. Curious, Sarah approached his table with her notepad in hand. "What can I get you?" she asked, her tone clipped. The man glanced up from the menu and gave her a polite smile. "I'll have the eggs Benedict, please," he said, his voice calm and measured. "And a cup of black coffee." Sarah scribbled down the order without much thought. As she turned to leave, however, she hesitated. Something about his demeanor irritated her, not because he'd done anything wrong, but because he seemed so composed. It was as if he didn't belong here, in this humble little diner where most people were just trying to scrape by. "You know," she muttered under her breath, loud enough for him to hear. "This place isn't exactly cheap. You might want to tip generously if you're planning to stick around." Her words hung in the air like a challenge. For a moment, Sarah expected him to react, perhaps glare at her or demand to speak to the manager. Instead, he simply smiled again, unfazed by her comment. "Thank you," he said softly, his expression unchanged. "I'll keep that in mind." Sarah blinked, surprised by his composure. She had expected anger or annoyance, but instead he radiated calmness. Shrugging it off, she returned to the kitchen to place his order, quickly forgetting about the encounter as the lunch rush picked up speed. Hours passed in a blur of plates, cups, and hurried footsteps. By noon, the diner was packed, and Sarah barely had time to catch her breath. Customers flowed in and out, each one demanding her attention. Amid the chaos, she forgot all about the well-dressed man by the window when she finally delivered his meal. He thanked her politely and began eating without another word. Sarah watched him for a moment, intrigued by how gracefully he handled his fork and knife. Everything about him screamed sophistication, from the way he chewed to the way he sipped his coffee. "Must be nice," she muttered to herself as she turned away, thinking about how easy life must be for someone like him. She didn't realize it at the time, but her resentment stemmed from a deeper place, a mix of frustration and envy. Sarah worked hard every day, yet she felt stuck in a dead-end job with no real opportunities for advancement. Seeing someone so polished and put together only reminded her of everything she lacked. By the time the man finished his meal and left, Sarah had already moved on to serving other customers. He slipped out quietly, leaving behind a generous tip that caught the attention of the other waitstaff. "Wow, look at this," exclaimed Lisa, one of Sarah's co-workers, holding up the bill. "This guy tipped $20 on a $12 meal." Sarah froze mid-step, her tray of dirty dishes suddenly feeling heavier than before. She hadn't noticed the amount when she cleared the table earlier. Now, guilt gnawed at her stomach as she replayed their brief interaction in her mind. Had she misjudged him? Was he being overly kind despite her rude remark? Before she could dwell on it further, the manager called everyone into the back office for an unexpected meeting. The staff exchanged nervous glances as they filed into the cramped room. Rumors swirled. Had there been complaints? Was someone getting fired? The tension in the room was palpable as the manager cleared his throat and addressed the group. "Listen up, everyone," he began, his voice serious. "I have some important news. Joe's Diner has officially changed ownership. From now on, we'll be operating under new management." A murmur rippled through the room as employees exchanged confused looks. Ownership change? That was unheard of. "And your new boss," the manager continued, pausing for dramatic effect, "is none other than Marcus Johnson." Behind him, a slideshow displayed photos of a distinguished-looking man shaking hands with politicians and standing beside luxury cars. Sarah's heart sank as realization dawned on her. The man in the pictures, the new owner of the diner, was the same man she'd insulted earlier that day. Her knees felt weak as panic set in. How could she have been so careless? What would happen now that he was in charge? Would he fire her, on the spot? Or worse, humiliate her in front of the entire staff? As the meeting ended and everyone dispersed, Sarah stayed rooted to her spot, staring blankly at the floor. Her mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would test her character and ultimately change her life forever. The news of Marcus Johnson's ownership spread like wildfire among the staff. By the time Sarah returned to her duties, everyone was buzzing with excitement or dread, depending on who you asked. Some employees were thrilled at the prospect of working for a wealthy businessman who might bring fresh ideas and improvements to the diner. Others, like Sarah, felt a knot of anxiety tightening in their stomachs. For Sarah, the rest of the day passed in a haze of paranoia. Every time the door chimed, signaling a new customer, she glanced up nervously, half expecting to see Marcus walk in. Would he confront her about her earlier comment? Or would he simply observe quietly, taking mental notes before deciding her fate? Her hands trembled as she poured coffee and scribbled down orders, her usual confidence replaced by unease. By closing time, Sarah was exhausted, not just from the physical demands of the job, but from the constant stress of wondering what Marcus would do next. As she hung up her apron and prepared to leave, Lisa approached her with a sympathetic smile. "Hey, don't worry too much," Lisa said gently. "Mr. Johnson seems like a reasonable guy. I'm sure he won't hold a grudge over one little remark." Sarah forced a weak smile. "Yeah, maybe," she muttered, though deep down she wasn't convinced. The next morning, Sarah arrived at work with a sense of impending doom. She had barely stepped inside when she spotted him, Marcus Johnson, standing near the counter, chatting casually with the manager. Dressed once again in a sleek suit, he looked every bit the part of a successful entrepreneur. Sarah's heart raced as she tried to slip past unnoticed, but it was too late. Marcus turned his head and locked eyes with her. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. Then, to Sarah's surprise, he gave her a polite nod and continued his conversation. Relieved that he hadn't called her out publicly, Sarah hurried to the back room to clock in. But her relief was short-lived. Over the next hour, Marcus made his way around the diner, introducing himself to each employee individually. When it was Sarah's turn, she braced herself for the worst. "Good morning," Marcus said warmly, extending his hand. "I believe we've met before." Sarah hesitated before shaking his hand, her palms sweaty and her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, sir. Welcome to Joe's Diner." Marcus studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, with a faint smile, he added, "Let's make sure our future interactions reflect mutual respect, shall we?" His words were calm but carried an undeniable weight. Sarah felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment as she nodded quickly, avoiding eye contact. "Of course, Mr. Johnson," she stammered. "I'll do my best." With that, Marcus moved on to greet the next employee, leaving Sarah feeling exposed and vulnerable. His subtle reprimand lingered in her mind long after he walked away. Over the following days, Marcus became a regular presence at the diner. He didn't just sit in an office or give orders from afar. Instead, he immersed himself in the daily operations, observing how things ran and offering suggestions for improvement. Employees soon realized that he wasn't the kind of boss who micromanaged. He trusted his team to do their jobs but expected excellence in return. For Sarah, this meant walking on eggshells whenever Marcus was nearby. She went out of her way to avoid him, dreading any interaction that might remind him of her earlier rudeness. At the same time, she couldn't help but notice how effortlessly he commanded respect. Whether he was discussing menu changes with the chef or greeting customers, with genuine warmth, Marcus exuded leadership qualities that left a lasting impression on everyone around him. One afternoon, during a particularly busy lunch rush, Sarah overheard Marcus speaking with the manager about implementing surprise inspections. The idea was to evaluate employee performance and ensure high standards of service. "What exactly are these inspections going to involve?" the manager asked curiously. Marcus explained that he planned to visit the diner unannounced, posing as a regular customer to observe how staff treated patrons. He emphasized the importance of treating all customers with kindness and professionalism, regardless of their appearance or demeanor. Sarah's stomach churned as she listened. She knew Marcus had already seen her at her worst. What if he decided to focus on her during these inspections? As the days turned into weeks, Sarah found herself hyper-aware of her behavior. She forced herself to smile more, even when dealing with difficult customers, and reminded herself to listen carefully to their requests. It wasn't easy. Her natural instinct was to snap back or roll her eyes, but she pushed through, determined not to give Marcus another reason to criticize her. Her efforts didn't go unnoticed. One evening, after serving a large group of rowdy teenagers, Lisa pulled Sarah aside. "You've been doing great lately," Lisa said sincerely. "I can tell you're trying really hard." Sarah shrugged, brushing off the compliment. "I just don't want to screw things up," she admitted. Lisa nodded knowingly. "Well, keep it up. Mr. Johnson seems to appreciate good work." Despite the encouragement, Sarah remained uneasy. Rumors swirled among the staff that Marcus planned to make staffing changes, and no one was safe from scrutiny. Some whispered that Sarah was at the top of the list, given her rocky start with the new owner. The uncertainty weighed heavily on Sarah, pushing her to work even harder. She stayed late to clean tables, volunteered for extra shifts, and practiced smiling in the mirror at home. Slowly but surely, she began to see the value in treating people with kindness and respect, even those who initially rubbed her the wrong way. Then came the day of Marcus's first surprise inspection. Sarah didn't know it at the time, of course. That morning she woke up feeling unusually anxious, as if something important was about to happen. When she arrived at the diner, everything seemed normal, until she spotted Marcus sitting at a corner table scrolling through his phone. Her heart skipped a beat. Was this it? Was he here to test her? Summoning every ounce of courage, Sarah approached his table with a bright smile. "Good morning, Mr. Johnson. Can I get you anything?" Marcus looked up, his expression neutral. "Just coffee for now, thank you." As Sarah delivered his drink, she made sure to maintain eye contact and speak clearly. "Here you go, sir. Let me know if there's anything else I can do for you." Marcus nodded approvingly. "Thank you, Sarah." For the rest of the day, Sarah kept stealing glances at his table, wondering if he was watching her closely. Each time she interacted with a customer, she reminded herself to be patient and polite, even when they were rude or demanding. By the end of her shift, Sarah was physically and emotionally drained, but also oddly proud of herself. For the first time in years, she felt like she was giving her best effort, not just going through the motions. Little did she know, Marcus had taken note of her transformation, and while he hadn't forgotten their initial encounter, he was beginning to see potential in the young waitress who once insulted him, a potential that would lead to unexpected opportunities in the weeks to come. The weeks that followed Marcus Johnson's surprise inspection were some of the most challenging, yet transformative in Sarah's life. She had always prided herself on being tough and self-reliant, but now she found herself questioning everything about her approach to work and to people in general. The fear of losing her job loomed large, but it wasn't just the threat of unemployment that drove her. For the first time, Sarah wanted to prove something, not just to Marcus, but to herself. Every morning, as she tied on her apron and stepped into the diner, she reminded herself of one simple rule: treat everyone with kindness. It sounded easy enough, but putting it into practice was harder than she expected. Some days, customers tested her patience, complaining about their orders, snapping at her for minor mistakes, or making unreasonable demands. In those moments, Sarah's old instincts kicked in, urging her to lash out or roll her eyes. But instead, she took a deep breath, forced a smile, and did her best to resolve the issue calmly. Her efforts didn't go unnoticed. One particularly chaotic afternoon, a man stormed into the diner, visibly upset. He slammed his fist on the counter and demanded to speak to the manager, claiming his meal had been overcharged. Most of the staff hesitated, unsure how to handle such an aggressive customer. But Sarah stepped forward. "I'm so sorry for the inconvenience," she said, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "Let me take care of this for you." She quickly reviewed the bill, discovered the error, and refunded the extra charge. Then, going above and beyond, she offered him a free dessert as an apology. By the time the interaction ended, the man was smiling and thanking her for her professionalism. Marcus, who had been sitting nearby during the entire exchange, observed silently from his table. Though he didn't say anything to Sarah afterward, his approving nod told her everything she needed to know. Despite her progress, rumors continued to swirl among the staff. Everyone knew Marcus was keeping a close eye on performance, and no one felt safe from scrutiny. Some employees whispered that Sarah was doomed, that Marcus was only tolerating her behavior until he could find a valid reason to fire her. Others speculated that he was giving her a second chance solely to make a point about accountability. Sarah tried not to let the gossip get to her, but it was hard. Every shift felt like walking a tightrope, balancing between proving herself and avoiding mistakes. She started arriving earlier than required, staying later than necessary, and volunteering for tasks no one else wanted to do. Her coworkers began to notice the change in her demeanor. "You've really turned things around," Lisa commented one evening as they cleaned up after closing time. "I mean, I always liked you, but lately, you're different." Sarah paused, wiping down a table. "Different how?" Lisa shrugged. "More patient, I guess, less snarky. Like you actually care now." Sarah smiled faintly, though her thoughts were elsewhere. She did care, but not just about keeping her job. Over the past few weeks, she'd come to realize that her attitude hadn't just affected her career. It had shaped the way others saw her, and if she wanted to be respected, she needed to earn it, not through sarcasm or superiority, but through genuine effort and kindness. One day, Marcus called the staff together for another meeting. By now, these gatherings had become routine, but there was always an undercurrent of nervous energy whenever he spoke. This time, however, his tone was lighter, almost celebratory. "First of all," he began, standing at the front of the room, "I want to thank each of you for your hard work. Since taking over Joe's Diner, I've seen incredible dedication and improvement across the board." The employees exchanged relieved glances. Maybe this wouldn't be as bad as they thought. "But," Marcus continued, raising a hand to silence the murmurs, "there's still room for growth. That's why I'll be conducting monthly reviews moving forward. Each of you will receive personalized feedback based on your performance." A collective groan rippled through the room. No one liked the idea of being evaluated, even if it meant positive reinforcement. Marcus chuckled softly. "Don't worry, this isn't about punishment, it's about recognizing strengths and addressing areas where we can improve. Together we can make Joe's Diner the best it's ever been." As the meeting wrapped up, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus's words were directed at her. Was she finally getting a real opportunity to prove herself? Or was this just the calm before the storm? When review day arrived, Sarah spent the morning pacing nervously behind the counter. Her stomach churned as she waited for Marcus to call her name. One by one, employees filed into the back office for their evaluations, returning with expressions ranging from relief to disappointment. Finally, it was Sarah's turn. She hesitated. Outside the door, her heart pounding. Taking a deep breath, she knocked lightly and stepped inside. Marcus sat at the desk, a folder open in front of him. His expression was neutral, giving nothing away. "Please have a seat," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Sarah obeyed, clutching her hands tightly in her lap to stop them from trembling. "Sarah," Marcus began, leaning back. In his chair, "When I first met you, our interaction left a strong impression, not necessarily a positive one." Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment and she lowered her gaze. "But," he added, his voice softening, "I've seen significant improvement in your performance over the past few weeks. You've shown initiative, professionalism, and a willingness to grow. That's exactly what I look for in my team." Sarah's head snapped up, surprise etched across her face. "Really?" she blurted out before she could stop herself. Marcus chuckled. "Yes, really. I won't deny that your initial behavior concerned me, but actions speak louder than words. You've demonstrated that you're capable of change, and that's worth acknowledging." For the first time in months, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't destined to fail after all. By the end of the review, Marcus had outlined specific goals for Sarah to focus on in the coming weeks. He encouraged her to continue building rapport with customers and offered guidance on handling difficult situations. To her astonishment, he even praised her ability to stay composed under pressure, a skill she hadn't realized she possessed. As she left the office, Sarah felt lighter than she had in ages. For the first time since Marcus took over, she believed she had a future at Joe's Diner, not just as a waitress, but as someone who could contribute meaningfully to its success. Over the next few weeks, Sarah threw herself into her work with renewed determination. She sought feedback from coworkers, practiced active listening with customers, and embraced challenges that would have once intimidated her. Slowly but surely, she began to see results, not just in her performance, but in the way people responded. To her, even Marcus seemed to soften toward her. On several occasions, he complimented her work directly, praising her for going above and beyond. Each word of encouragement fueled her motivation, pushing her to strive for even greater heights. Little did Sarah know, Marcus had bigger plans for her. While she focused on proving herself as a waitress, he was quietly considering her for a leadership role within the diner. After all, he valued not just talent but resilience, the ability to learn from mistakes and emerge stronger. And Sarah, whether she realized it or not, was proving herself to be exactly that kind of person. Sarah's transformation didn't happen overnight, but it was undeniable. Over time, her coworkers began to see a new side of her, a side that radiated confidence without arrogance, kindness without hesitation. She was no longer the sharp-tongued waitress who snapped at customers or rolled her eyes behind their backs. Instead, she became someone people could rely on, someone who greeted every challenge with determination and grace. Marcus noticed, too. He had always been observant, watching his employees closely to identify strengths and weaknesses. With Sarah, he saw something special, raw potential. Though she had started out as a liability, her willingness to change and grow impressed him. He knew that leadership wasn't just about skill, it was about character, and Sarah was proving herself to have both. One afternoon, Marcus called Sarah into the office again. By now, she was accustomed to these meetings, though they still made her nervous. As she entered the room, she found Marcus sitting at the desk, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Have a seat," he said, gesturing toward the chair across from him. Sarah obeyed, her mind racing. What did he want this time? Was she in trouble? Had she slipped up somehow? "I've been thinking about you," Marcus began, leaning forward slightly. "You've come a long way since we first met, and I believe you're ready for more responsibility." Sarah blinked, unsure if she'd heard him correctly. "More responsibility?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, I'm considering promoting you to shift supervisor. It's not an official title yet. We'll start by having you oversee certain shifts and mentor newer staff members, but it's a step toward greater involvement in the diner's operations." Sarah's heart raced. A promotion? Her? Just months ago she had been convinced Marcus would fire her. Now he was offering her a chance to lead? I don't know what to say, she stammered, overwhelmed by the unexpected opportunity. You don't have to decide right away, Marcus replied with a reassuring smile. But I want you to think about it. You've earned this chance, Sarah. Don't let self-doubt hold you back. That night, Sarah lay awake in bed, replaying Marcus's words in her mind. Could she really handle the added responsibility? Supervising others meant setting an example, not just in terms of work ethic, but in how she treated people. She had worked hard to improve her attitude, but leading a team required even more patience and understanding. Still, the idea excited her. For years, she had felt stuck in a dead-end job, going through the motions without purpose. This promotion represented something bigger, a chance to prove herself, to show everyone and herself that she was capable of more than they thought. The next morning, she arrived at the diner early, determined to accept the offer. When she told Marcus her decision, he smiled warmly. "I'm glad to hear it," he said. "You won't regret this." Over the following weeks, Sarah threw herself into her new role. At first, it was intimidating, managing schedules, handling conflicts between staff members, and ensuring smooth service during peak hours tested her limits. There were moments when she doubted herself, wondering if she was cut out for leadership after all. But each time she stumbled, Marcus was there to guide her, to offer advice, share insights, and remind her why he believed in her. Her co-workers, too, rallied around her. Some were initially skeptical, given her reputation, but Sarah quickly won them over with her fairness and dedication. She listened to their concerns, offered constructive feedback, and went out of her way to support them when things got tough. One evening, during a particularly busy dinner rush, chaos erupted in the kitchen. Orders piled up, plates were dropped, and tempers flared. Amid the frenzy, Sarah stepped in, calmly directing traffic and delegating tasks. "Lisa, can you help clear table 5? She asked, her voice steady despite the noise. "Tom, focus on getting those burgers out. They've been waiting too long." To everyone's surprise, the situation stabilized within minutes. Customers who had been growing restless relaxed as their food arrived promptly, and the staff breathed a collective sigh of relief. Afterward, Lisa pulled Sarah aside. "That was amazing," she said, her eyes wide with admiration. "How do you stay so calm under pressure?" Sarah shrugged, though a small smile tugged at her lips. "I just try to focus on solving problems, one step at a time." As the weeks turned into months, Sarah's confidence grew. She began to take pride in her work, not just because of the praise she received from Marcus and her coworkers, but because she genuinely enjoyed helping others succeed. Watching her team thrive gave her a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. Marcus continued to mentor her, sharing stories from his own journey to success. He often reminded her that leadership wasn't about being perfect. It was about learning from mistakes and inspiring others to do the same. "You've already come so far," he told her one day. "Don't stop now. Keep pushing yourself, and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve." Inspired by his words, Sarah set her sights on even bigger goals. She enrolled in online courses to improve her management skills and volunteered to assist with planning events at the diner. Slowly but surely, she began to envision a future beyond Joe's Diner, a future where she could run her own business or lead an entire organization. Despite her progress, Sarah never forgot where she came from. Whenever a new employee joined the team, she took them under her wing, sharing lessons she had learned along the way. "One thing I've realized," she told them during training sessions, "is that treating people with respect isn't just the right thing to do. It's good for business. Happy employees mean happy customers, and that benefits everyone." Her words carried weight because they came from experience. Those who had known her before her transformation marveled at how much she had changed, not just in behavior, but in mindset. Even Marcus couldn't help but feel proud. Watching Sarah evolve from a troubled waitress to a confident leader validated his decision to give her a second chance. He knew that true growth stemmed not from punishment, but from opportunity, and Sarah had seized hers with both hands. By the end of the year, Sarah's promotion became official. She was named assistant manager of Joe's Diner, a role that came with increased responsibilities and recognition. The announcement was met with cheers from the staff, many of whom credited Sarah's leadership for the diner's recent success. For Sarah, the achievement was bittersweet. On one hand, she was thrilled to have reached such a milestone. On the other, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come and how close she had been to losing everything. Standing behind the counter on her first day in her new position, Sarah looked around the bustling diner with a sense of pride. The place hadn't changed much. It was still the same cozy restaurant she had walked into years ago. But she had changed, and deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Sarah's journey at Joe's Diner wasn't just about climbing the ranks, it was about transformation. Over time, she had become a different person, someone who inspired others and earned their respect. But perhaps the most profound change was within herself. She no longer saw her job as a means to an end. Instead, it became a platform for growth, a place where she could make a difference in the lives of those around her. As assistant manager, Sarah took on new challenges with enthusiasm. She revamped the staff training program, emphasizing teamwork and customer service. She introduced monthly meetings where employees could voice their concerns and share ideas. And she worked closely with Marcus to implement changes that improved efficiency, from streamlining the kitchen workflow to updating the menu with healthier options. Under her leadership, Joe's Diner flourished. Customers raved about the friendly atmosphere and attentive service while employees praised the positive work environment. The diner's reputation soared, attracting not only locals but also tourists eager to experience its charm. But Sarah didn't stop there. Inspired by Marcus's vision, she began dreaming bigger. What if she could open her own restaurant someday? A place that combined great food with a culture of kindness and inclusivity. It seemed like a distant goal, but for the first time in years, Sarah allowed herself to imagine a future beyond what she once thought possible. One evening, after closing time, Marcus called Sarah into his office. By now, these meetings had become routine, but this one felt different. As she entered, she noticed a stack of papers on his desk, documents and charts that hinted at something important. "Have a seat," Marcus said, gesturing toward the chair. His tone was serious yet warm, the same way he always spoke when discussing matters close to his heart. Sarah obeyed, curiosity bubbling inside her. "What's going on?" Marcus smiled faintly. "I wanted to talk to you about the future, not just yours, but the diner's." He explained that he was planning to expand Joe's Diner, opening additional locations across the city. It was a bold move, one that required careful planning and strong leadership. "And I want you to be part of it," he continued. "Specifically, I'd like you to oversee the operations of our second location when we're ready to launch." Sarah's jaw dropped. "Me? Run an entire diner?" Marcus nodded. "You've proven yourself time and again, Sarah. You have the skills, the drive, and the ability to inspire others. This is your chance to take everything you've learned and apply it on a larger scale." For a moment, Sarah sat in stunned silence. The weight of the opportunity pressed down on her. Could she really handle such a responsibility? What if she failed? Sensing her hesitation, Marcus leaned forward. "I know it's a big step, but remember why I hired you in the first place. Not because you were perfect, but because you were willing to grow. Trust me, Sarah, you're ready for this." The months leading up to the launch of the second location were a whirlwind of activity. Sarah worked tirelessly alongside Marcus, learning the intricacies of running a business, from budgeting and marketing to hiring and training staff. Every decision, no matter how small, was an opportunity to learn and improve. When the day finally arrived, Sarah stood outside the new diner, her heart pounding with excitement and nerves. The building gleamed under the morning sun, its sign freshly painted and its windows sparkling clean. Inside, her team waited eagerly, ready to welcome their first customers. As the doors opened, a flood of people poured in, drawn by curiosity and anticipation. Sarah moved through the crowd, greeting patrons with a smile and ensuring everything ran smoothly. By the end of the day, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. "You did it," Marcus said later that evening, clapping her on the back. "This is just the beginning." Over the next few years, Sarah's career skyrocketed. With Marcus's guidance, she successfully managed multiple locations, each one thriving under her leadership. Along the way, she mentored countless employees, teaching them the values of hard work, respect, and perseverance. Many of them went on to pursue careers in hospitality, crediting Sarah for shaping their paths. But Sarah never forgot where she started, or the lessons she had learned along the way. Whenever she faced a challenge, she reminded herself of the young woman who had once insulted a customer out of insecurity. That memory grounded her, reminding her of how far she had come and how much she still had to offer. In interviews and speeches, Sarah often shared her story, hoping to inspire others facing similar struggles. "I used to think success was about talent or luck," she told audiences, "but now I know it's about resilience, the ability to learn from your mistakes and keep moving forward. Everyone deserves a second chance, including yourself." Her words resonated deeply, earning her recognition not just as a successful businesswoman, but as a role model for aspiring leaders everywhere. Years later, when Sarah finally opened her own restaurant, a cozy bistro nestled in the heart of downtown, she dedicated it to Marcus Johnson. On the wall near the entrance hung a plaque that read, "To Marcus, whose belief in me changed my life. Thank you for giving me a second chance and showing me what true leadership looks like." On opening night, Marcus attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony, visibly moved by Sarah's gesture. "You've done incredible things," he told her, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm proud of you, Sarah." Tears welled up in her eyes as she hugged him tightly. "None of this would have been possible without you," she whispered. As guests filled the bistro, laughter and conversation filling the air, Sarah looked around with a sense of fulfillment. Her journey had been long and challenging, but every step had led her here, to a place where she could create joy, build connections, and leave a lasting legacy. And as she raised a glass to toast her achievement, she knew one thing for certain. Second chances weren't just gifts. They were opportunities to rewrite your story.